Are US's tariff pushing European allies into China's arms? Not quite. Let me explain. As the US unleashed a global trade war, some politicians suggested the EU should join forces with China to mitigate the impact of Trump's tariffs. With the EU being the single biggest market in the world and China's position as a global manufacturing giant, some analysts saw an opportunity. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez called on the EU to review its ties with Beijing, while others called for the EU and China to hold an international conference. While Chinese President Xi Jinping hailed the EU and China as the two major forces building a multipolar world, Chinese officials touted cooperation with Beijing as a fitting response to Washington. So there were moments it seemed Beijing and Brussels may come closer. That didn't happen, and here's why. After Trump's tariffs, Chinese shipments to the US fell, but its exports to the EU surged. These products included smartphones, laptops, batteries, and solar panels. In some products, prices saw a sharp fall and exports a sharp rise. EU experts then suggested that China was exporting products meant for the US to Europe, a practice called trade diversion.
China is running the largest trade surplus in the history of mankind. Its trade surplus with our union has surpassed 300 billion euros last year.
Data from May revealed an increase in Chinese exports to France by 24%, to Germany by more than 20%, and to Estonia by nearly 80%. Before the tariffs, China was selling double of what it was importing from the EU. Now its exports have increased even more. Meanwhile, European businesses have been left dealing both with the looming threat of US levies and competition from an added flood of cheap Chinese goods. China vehemently denies diverting trade from the US to the EU. But the initial optimism around EU-China trade relations has faded, and a sense of mistrust has grown within the bloc. As long as Beijing offers state support to Chinese companies to overproduce at lower costs, European manufacturers, without the same support, will lose out in the market to the Chinese. Think solar panels, electric cars. The threat from China is a long-term one, and the EU's problems have only been compounded by Trump's tariffs, shaking up a Western-led global trade order. China wants to benefit from the chaos. On the EU's part, it now faces two trade adversaries, both China and the US.